As the last wisps of winter's chill dissipated, the sun burst forth from behind the battlements, casting a golden glow over the castle walls, illuminating the intricate stone carvings that told stories of battles won and kingdoms ruled. The air was alive with the sweet scent of blooming wildflowers, their delicate petals swaying in the gentle breeze like nature's own confetti, mingling with the savory aroma of roasting meats wafting from the kitchen. I stepped out of the chilly dawn and into the warm, honey-hued light, my feet crunching on the frost-etched stone flags that felt like ice beneath my worn leather shoes. The sound of clinking pots and pans drifted through the corridors as the cooks prepared for the day's meals, accompanied by the murmur of morning chatter from the castle's inhabitants. My master's voice, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through every cell in my body, summoned me from the kitchen. "Thomas, boy, fetch the gardener's basket. We'll need it for the midday meal." I hastened to comply, the weight of the woven reed basket swinging in my arms as I made my way towards the great hall, where a warm fire crackled and spat in the stone hearth, casting a golden glow on the flags. As I took my place at the far end of the hall, near the door to the servants' quarters, the warmth of the fire seemed to seep into my bones on this chilly morning. A soft blanket draped over my shoulders, its familiar weight a comforting presence. I gazed out at the bustling scene before me. The sizzle of bacon and the murmur of conversation created a soothing background hum, punctuated by the clang of pots and pans in the kitchen as the cook expertly flipped the day's offerings. To one side, the scullery maid, her eyes red from crying, scrubbed at a particularly stubborn stain on a pot, her hands raw and sore from yesterday's task. The air was thick with the smell of cooking meat, sweat, and smoke, mingling with the faint scent of last night's supper still lingering in the atmosphere. I watched as my master's wife, her face set in a stern expression, inspected the morning's rations before issuing orders to the assembled staff, her voice firm but not unkind, as she directed the cook to add more salt to the stew and the scullery made to fetch fresh water from the well. As I carried the basket to the kitchen, I caught a whiff of something else, wood shavings and sawdust, the unmistakable scent of repairs in full swing. The morning sunlight streaming through the grimy windows highlighted the dust motes dancing in the air, imbuing the atmosphere with a sense of industry and purpose. My master's workshop was always abuzz with activity. This morning was no exception. The sound of hammers striking metal echoed through the corridors, accompanied by the occasional shout of triumph or muttered curse as my master carefully shaped a chunk of stone into a new plumb bob. I made my way to the toolbox, its leather exterior creaking as I opened it, releasing the rich aroma of oil and metal that was both familiar and comforting. Inside, the tools lay waiting, each one bearing the scars of countless projects. My master's hammer, adorned with a small silver band, his chisel, etched with a crude drawing of a mythical creature, all ready to shape the castle's stone into something new, something useful. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a pale light through the narrow windows that looked out onto the mist-shrouded moorland, I settled into my daily routine, the familiar rhythms of the kitchen providing a sense of comfort and security. The air was thick with the scent of wood smoke and baking bread, which wafted from the nearby ovens, mingling with the smell of roasting meats that had been slow-cooked all morning. I hung my cloak on a hook near the door, letting the soft leather creak against the wooden frame, and set to work on the task at hand, preparing the day's meals for the castle's inhabitants. My hands moved with practiced ease, chopping vegetables and stirring pots as the rhythmic clang of metal against stone echoed through the room, punctuated by the occasional grunt from one of the other servants as they took a break from their own tasks. The sound of sizzling bacon filled my ears, a comforting constant in an otherwise quiet morning, its savory aroma mingling with the faint hint of damp earth that seeped into the kitchen from the castle's ancient stones. As I scrubbed the worn stone floor with a mixture of vinegar and hot water, the scullery maid's determination only seemed to intensify, her hands moving in perfect sync with mine, our footsteps echoing off the cold walls as we worked. The cook, a stern but kind-eyed woman in her late 60s, moved with a speed and precision that belied her age, her silver hair tied back in a neat knot beneath her white cap. We chatted quietly, exchanging hushed stories of the comings and goings within the castle walls. Whispers of the Lord's latest hunting trip, the arrival of a new shipment of fresh produce from the village below. The scent of roasting meat wafted through the air, mingling with the pungent smell of cooking fat, and I felt my stomach growl in anticipation of lunch. Outside, the sky was a deep, foreboding gray. Winter's chill still lingered long after spring had officially begun, but inside, warmth and laughter filled the scullery, chasing away any lingering doubts as the sun began its slow descent towards the horizon, casting a golden glow over the castle once more. I took a moment to step outside into the cool evening air, the biting wind whipping my hair into a frenzy as it carried the smell of wood smoke and baking bread wafting from the kitchen, mingling with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The thatched roof of our small servants' quarters creaked in the gentle breeze, as if protesting the cold, while the distant clanging of pots in the kitchen added a rhythmic cadence to the evening soundscape. I breathed deeply, feeling the chill of winter still lingering in the air, but also a sense of contentment. Another day had passed, and I had made it through without incident, despite the endless drudgery of polishing armor and serving at mealtimes. The sound of my master's voice carried on the breeze, his words indistinguishable as he walked towards me from the great hall, a basket slung over his arm, where a few wilted herbs and a chunk of salted meat lay nestled amongst the straw, no doubt for tonight's supper. As I moved through the kitchen, my feet scuffling against the cold stone floor, the air enveloped me in its thick, savory scent. The crackling flames of the hearth danced across the faces of the cooks, their features illuminated by the warm light, and for an instant, I saw a glimmer of human connection amidst the chaos. The cook's hands moved with a speed and precision that belied her age, her face set in a determined expression as she expertly plated the day's offerings, a riot of color against the drab stone walls, golden brown meats, emerald green herbs, and ruby red berries. I watched her work, my own movements becoming more fluid with practice, as I chopped vegetables and stirred pots alongside her. Our breathing synchronized in the stillness before the castle's evening din outside. A light drizzle fell upon the battlements, casting a misty veil over the landscape, while within, the warmth of the kitchen wrapped me in its comforting arms, a sense of camaraderie washing over me like a balm. We were two souls bound together by as the gray winter morning wore on. The castle's kitchen came alive with the sound of sizzling meat and simmering stews, the aroma of which wafted through the narrow corridors, mingling with the scent of wood smoke and damp stone. I scrubbed pots and pans until my hands bled, feeling the familiar ache in my fingers as the scullery maid did the same nearby, their movements a blur of speed and efficiency as they worked to keep pace with the cook's demanding rhythm. The cook's laughter echoed through the kitchen, mingling with the clang of pots and pans, a reminder that even in the most mundane tasks lay a beauty to be found. The way the sunlight streaming through the narrow window highlighted the dust motes dancing in the air, or the sound of the river outside providing a soothing background hum. Yet, despite this, I couldn't shake the feeling of restlessness, a sense that there was more to life than the endless cycle of work and sleep. My eyes drifting to the narrow window high above the fireplace, where I could see the snow-covered trees swaying gently in the wind outside, their branches etched against the gray sky like delicate pen and ink as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the castle in a warm orange glow. I stepped outside into the cool evening air, wrapping my woolen cloak tightly around me. The smell of wood smoke and baking bread wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves that clung to the stone walls. I breathed deeply, feeling the chill of winter still lingering in the air, but also a sense of contentment. Another day had passed, and I had made it through without incident. The sound of my master's voice carried on the breeze, his words indistinguishable as he walked towards me from the great hall, where candles flickered like tiny suns, casting shadows on the stone floor. A basket slung over his arm, laden with freshly baked bread and cheese, swung gently with each step, releasing a savory aroma that made my stomach growl with anticipation. As I watched him approach, I straightened my own shoulders, smoothing out the folds of my simple tunic, and prepared to receive my evening. As night began to fall, casting a soft darkness over the castle walls, I felt a sense of reflection wash over me as I surveyed the empty kitchen. The last remnants of the day's meal lay scattered on the hearth, the ashes still warm from the cooking fire that had crackled and spat earlier in the evening. The cook's hands, which had moved with practiced ease to chop, dice, and sauté throughout the day, now lay still on the counter, her face relaxed into a gentle smile as she gazed out into the darkness, her eyes squinting against the fading light that streamed through the narrow windows. I watched her for a moment, feeling a deep gratitude for this life we shared, a life that was hard and unforgiving, yet filled with moments of beauty and connection. The flickering candles cast eerie shadows on the walls as I took in the scene. The worn wooden spoons hung from hooks on the wall, their metal surfaces glinting dully in the fading light. The rusty cauldron sat silent and still, its contents long since disposed of, and the faint scent of simmering stew wafted up from the depths of the kitchen, transporting me to a world of warmth and comfort that felt suddenly fragile and ephemeral. The air inside the kitchen was cool and still, the only sound the soft ticking of the clock on the wall and the distant hooting of owls outside. I lit a candle, its flame casting flickering shadows on the walls as I began to clean up the remnants of the day's meal. My hands moved with a quiet purpose, washing away the last remnants of grease and grime from the pots and pans, my mind wandering back over the events of the past 24 hours. The scullery maid's tears had dried by now, replaced by a determined look on her face as she scrubbed away at a stubborn stain on the floor. I remembered the gardener's basket, our master's voice summoning me from the kitchen that morning. It all seemed so long ago now, as if yesterday had never existed. As I finished up my tasks and began to make my way back to my small chamber deep in the castle's depths, I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror hanging on the wall. The candlelight danced across my face, casting shadows and highlighting the lines of fatigue etched into my skin. I looked old for my years, worn down by the relentless demands of this life. Yet as I gazed into the glass, I saw something more. A glimmer of hope, a spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. For in the end, it was not the drudgery and hardship that defined me, but the moments of beauty and connection that punctuated my days like stars in the night sky. And with this thought, I turned away from the mirror, disappearing into the darkness of my chamber, ready to face whatever the night might bring.